guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new legal advice content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first one is titled, "My creepy neighbor built his fence about 4 feet within his yard and comes to the other side to mow, rake, his small strip of land every time I use my pool. Is this legal? Connecticut. I'm sorry if this post is a little convoluted, but stick with me and hopefully, you'll see my problem. It's just a little tough for me to explain. The former owners of my house had a dog in the backyard 1/4 acre, pretty suburbanly small, as fenced in on 3 sides by a chain link fence which they owned, and on one side by a chain link fence belonging to their neighbor. The neighbor's fence was there before they installed theirs, so they just sidled up theirs to his and the dog couldn't get out. This was the situation upon my purchasing the home in May 2015. The old owners spoke highly of this neighbor in question. They were an above middle-aged couple and the husband used to chat with said neighbor over the fence while doing yard work. The wife would share veggies from her garden, and they would keep an eye on each other's properties. I have had a bit of a different experience. I doubt you want to read about all of the uncomfortable interactions I've had with him over the past 3 months, but suffice it to say that this 70-year-old widower thinks his new 26-year-old single neighbor would make a great romantic partner for him. He also somehow thinks that having a copy of every Playboy magazine put out since like 1970 is something that would impress her. I've never been so keen to get out of a basement in my life. Anyway, I quickly realized that I couldn't smile or be polite to this guy without him feeling as though I'd invited him into my front yard, invited him to touch my arms, hair, hands, or to keep me engaged in a one-sided conversation for as long as he could. I was feeling very uncomfortable with his prolonged eye contact and constant hints that he was lonely, and so I began to give him the cold shoulder. He pressed it for a while, but I guess he realized what was going on, and that's when he removed the fence. As the fence started to come down, I wasn't really worried. I figured it was his tactic to provoke me, or a little temper tantrum, and so I ignored it. I'd only use the pool when he wasn't home or was simply inside during these times. The fence was previously only chain link, so it's not like I ever had any privacy anyway, but he was awfully noisy about removing the fence and I didn't care to hear it. Not just the tools, but the frequent exaggerated sighing, grunting, and wheezing. It felt as though he was just begging me to either offer him help or ask him why he was removing the fence. I didn't care to play that game, so I'd ignore it, but it was annoying the same, so I stayed inside when he was working for these 4 days. To my surprise, however, the day after the fence came down, a new one went up, 4 feet further into his property than the old one. The new one is wooden, about 5 feet tall, and solid. I figured it was a gesture to me that he doesn't want to see me anymore or something. Whatever. I continued to ignore it. When I came home from work the next day, I saw that the men who had installed the fence had now also installed a waist-high gate, in matching wood, which connects from his new fence to my fence, which begins on my property line, runs perpendicular to his fence, and ends at the side of my house. So basically, his fence is an L shape, 100 yards by 4 feet, but the 4 feet head towards my house, not his. This looked strange to me. I realized that now my yard is once again fenced in on all 4 sides, but that now about a 100 square yard strip of his land is enclosed within it. Was he trying to offer me a gift of land and privacy in exchange for my resumed attentions? I was suspicious of the fact that the 4-foot bit was a gate, however, instead of more fence. He's basically built himself a gate into my yard, although it's technically his property. Yeah, well, I didn't have to wonder long, because the bullshit began almost immediately. Since this was constructed, 95% of the time I'm in the backyard, mostly using the pool, but sometimes doing yard work or gardening. He's letting himself in through the gate and ducking mowing his little strip of land, not setting a single toe onto my property. When he's not mowing, he's laying grass seed, sanding his fence, raking leaves. WTF, I don't know. Taking a break to sip from his water bottle and just gazing into the distance behind me. He's on the strip for only like 20 minutes at a time, but I can count on at least one appearance for every time I put on a swimming suit. It's been 3 weeks of this now and I'm so over it. I should be able to feel comfortable in my own yard. I've been researching fence prices and stuff, but it seems like anything I can afford is see-through and not high enough for him not to be able to see over if he stands right next to it. I'm also not sure if I'm even allowed to put up a fence without some sort of permit. Was he? Is his fence and what he's doing even legal? If I can borrow some money from my boss, and get a 6-foot solid fence, would that be a spite fence? Basically, I know I need to do something, but I don't know what or how and would like some advice and ideas. I scraped together nearly all of my savings for the deposit on this house, in order to get a better interest rate on the mortgage, so I'm not very solvent ATM. My boss has suggested that we build our own fence. He has a whole workshop full of tools at his home, and a pickup truck, but even just the wood from Home Depot would be pricey if I want to make it solid. Personally, I'd straight up patch one together using wood from pallets. They're free, but I'm 95% sure something that ugly would be a spite fence. My bosses offered to lend me the cash, but IDK. That seems a bit awkward to me, but I'll do it if I have to. I know other people but none in a position to lend cash. Update will be coming tomorrow. The next one is titled, Rear-Ended by Uninsured Driver. North Carolina. I wanted to reach out and pick your collective brain. A little over a week ago, I was rear-ended at a stoplight. I took photos of the damage, called the local PD, and pulled over with the other driver. The driver was young and apologetic. He admitted fault to the responding officer, who put together a driver information exchange form, and sent us on our way. I called his insurance to file the claim and was informed that his policy was no longer valid. After calling the responding officer, my insurance, and finally his insurance again, I was able to determine the most likely scenario. According to his former insurance agent, the policy had been cancelled within the past 2 weeks for non-payment. So, he no longer has coverage, but the DMV shows it as active, since the cancellation was so recent. My luck seemed to pick up when the driver's mother called me to explain that there was some mix-up with the insurance, that they were covered. I don't buy it, but that she would be happy to pay for the damages if I wanted to get it quoted. So, while I didn't believe her story, I didn't really care. All I wanted is my car fixed. Flash forward to the present day, I've gone out of my way for 3 separate quotes from 3 body shops, all of which have been within 5% of each other. Each time I present her with the quotes, she balks and claims she has seen the photos, and it doesn't look that bad. Each time, I gently remind her that neither she nor I are professionals in the automotive repair field. My issue is that I'm unsure how best to move forward. I'm having difficulty maintaining the facade of congeniality, but I'm also trying to stick to the whole more flies with honey method. Do I continue to waste my time getting quotes that are above her imaginary expectations? Do I put my foot down and sue for the damages? My agent explained that I could file the claim under my collision policy, but then I'm on the hook for the deductible, and will only be reimbursed if they can collect from the driver. Update. I realized that I never updated all of you, and while this one may not have been a massive win, I know I always appreciate seeing some closure to the posts around here. Background. I was rear-ended by a minor, and his insurance policy had lapsed months ago. His mom contacted me and offered to make things right. Update. The mother of the driver and I went back and forth for a while. I went out of my way to provide quotes from multiple sources, and each one was way too high in her opinion. She asked me if I would be willing to go to a shop of her choosing. Careful not to blindly agree, I told her that I would be happy to consider anything she sends my way, as long as they're reputable. Turns out, her guy worked out of what appeared to be a junkyard and had multiple felonies for assault. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with him working on the truck. She fed me some lines meant to make me feel guilty. I don't hold people's past against them and I'm a single mom, etc. This just put us back to square one. I would provide quotes, she would tell me they were too high, ad nauseum. To her credit, she was a pretty good liar, or at least creative. Things that she told me were happening, but never did. Insurance made a mistake, and they would contact me to pay for the damage. Her church was taking up donations for her to pay the damage. Her son was getting a job to pay for the damage. Her ex-husband was loaning her the money to pay for the damage. Her bonus was coming, and she'd use that to pay for the damage. It got to the point that I was allowing this to continue, more out of morbid curiosity than anything else. I had a slightly bent bumper, and a year's supply of stories from this lady. But eventually I got tired of the charade and told her that if she didn't pay by 1st of December, 5 months after the accident, that I'd be suing. December 1st rolled around and no payment, of course. December 2nd rolled around, and I got paid. Was it worth handling myself, instead of letting insurance go after them? Maybe. Would I do it again? Absolutely not. The next one is titled, Neighbor on top floor vaulted his ceilings without permission. Now the building is being overheated so he can be warm. We are in a 5-floor walk-up with steam heat. During a renovation, the 5th-floor neighbor did some undisclosed work on his ceiling. He vaulted it, which means he removed the ceiling and exposed the beams underneath. When it got cold, he complained and had the heat turned up. Now the halls are 84F and the apartments are viciously hot. The guy did his work without permission, is claiming his vaulted ceiling is completely insulated, and is demanding that one less amount of heat would be unacceptable. I want the building to go back to normal and send the guy to Home Depot to get a space heater or something. We are in NYC. Any advice? Update. I convinced the building manager of how bad it is, and she agreed to have the heat turned down for the long weekend. Tonight is still gonna suck, but it made me hopeful. Update 2. Heat has already been turned down. I can breathe better and it's so much quieter without the sound of the traffic. Update 3. Building manager contacted me today and apparently the super discovered a broken lock in the boiler turned up to holy hell yesterday. The next one is titled, "Can I call CPS over this?" I've almost hit 3 years old in my complex at least 5 times now because his parents sit on the 2nd floor porch and throw balls at him, and he sprints out into the parking lot to get them. I live in Kyle, Texas, just south of Austin in an apartment complex. This kid is definitely no older than 3 years old. A lot of times I'll be coming home, and he will just suddenly run out into the parking lot from behind a parked car chasing some toy, and I have to slam on my brakes every time to avoid hitting him. He absolutely doesn't look either way. It's damn near like watching a joke cartoon scene, except I have to restart my heart after almost killing a toddler. I've seen his family sitting up on the 2nd-story porch, watching him do this and saying nothing, and oftentimes he will throw a big rubber ball up at them and they'll throw it back down, which is often what sends him running into the parking lot. I've looked around and there's never an adult actually down on the ground with him that I've been able to see. They're all up on the porch, which means obviously they're not gonna be able to get down to him in time to prevent an accident. And oftentimes he's alone, just throwing the ball up at the building and chasing it into the lot when it bounces off. I've also seen multiple other cars almost hit the kid. It's been going on for several months now. I'm seriously concerned that eventually either I or another resident is going to hit this poor kid, and he's so small that even at 15 miles an hour it's going to kill him. I don't want to straight up call the police. I felt like that was absolutely overkill by itself, and then add to that this family is black, and this is a hick town in the South. I am really trying to avoid any police officers in the situation. But this is serious endangerment in my opinion. I've watched this child almost die multiple times now, and the family is either directly responsible, by throwing crap into the street, or passively neglectful by simply watching him run out there so much, or the times they're not even on the porch. But I don't want to call and waste someone's time. If it would be more appropriate to just email or meet with my leasing manager and talk to her about the problem, since I'm not familiar with CPS and don't know if this would actually be something they'd put the time in to come take care of. Thank you for reading, and I really appreciate any advice from y'all. Update. I went ahead and filed a report with CPS online. I did choose to leave my contact info on it for follow-ups. I ended up getting an email within an hour stating that they feel this is an appropriate situation for a CPS investigation. I honestly feel a great deal better after doing so. I'm one of those people who does everything they can to not cause waves and whatnot, so having so many people offer up air advice and urge me to report this really helped push me to do something. Again, I greatly appreciate everyone that took the time to comment, and especially those who provided links to either CPS reporting site or to info about Texas laws in regard to reporting neglect. Hopefully this will be resolved safely. The last one is titled, "My car was hit by a girl in a university parking lot. Her mom was my car insurance agent. Advice? About 3 years ago during college, a girl hit my car in the college's library parking lot. Cops got called, and I was told that no police report would be written because the accident happened in a parking lot. I go home, call my insurance agent, and it turns out that my insurance agent was her mom. As a dumb college student, I believed her when she assured me that the accident would not be anybody's fault and that there wouldn't be any claims to my insurance. 3 years later, I find out that my car insurance has rocketed to $500 a month, and my new insurance agent told me that the accident from 3 years ago was posted as my fault and that my insurance had to cover the girl that hit me. Is there anything I can do about this? Is this considered a conflict of interest? Thanks for any help. Update. Hi, I just found time to read through all these comments. Thank you so much for all the advice. I have never had a DUI before. I'm a 23-year-old female, if that matters in insurance land. I drive a Jeep Cherokee and the girl drove a Honda Accord. I'm also really confused as to why my insurance premium increased so much for 1 month. I've had 2 accidents that were my fault, rear ends, one in 2015 and one in 2020. I can't imagine that the rear end from this year caused my insurance to come up so much. Could it be a result of the other party claiming that I put them in pain and hospitalization? My insurance agent was not clear on disclosing this to me. Thanks for listening.